It's episode 10 of the Apothecary Diaries, and finally, things are coming to a head. We have all of these different bits of evidence, strange threads of different storylines, characters from every episode thus far, all coming together in an interesting way, with yet again another mystery to be solved. But do not fear, because Detective Maomao is again on the case. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and we are back with another review and analysis for the Apothecary Diaries. And this episode delivered far above what even I was expecting. This episode, like I just said, brought together elements from so many different stories to begin to weave a very interesting picture of what might actually be happening within the rear palace. We have this interesting opening shot that makes us think that this is perhaps Jinshi out for a late night drink on top of the palace walls, but really when we look back at it, we realize that this is concubine Aodo, who has a striking resemblance to Jinshi. But that's not the only interesting thing happening right here. It turns out that there's a real family affair going on within the rear palace. Maomao's father is also someone who was once inside the imperial palace. Things are getting really interesting right here. But the plot for this episode is rather straightforward. In their attempts to uncover what is really happening within the rear palace, Jinshi and Gaoshen once again rely on Maomao to act as a spy and send her on over into the Garnet Palace, where she will be with concubine Aodo, mostly, however, to spy on her head lady in waiting, to see what is she up to. And we quickly discover that this palace is very different to all of the other ones. This one runs like clockwork. It is, in many ways, almost like the imperial palace itself, with everyone dutifully seeing to all of the different jobs that need to be done. People lead by example. There is courteousness, there is beauty, there is efficiency. And this works really well for concubine Aodo, who is the oldest concubine within the rear palace, and someone who was poised to potentially be empress because she was the first concubine for the emperor and one who bore him a son. But it all unraveled when that son died. Now, many years later, as the emperor, who was at that time just the prince with his one concubine, is now in this very powerful situation. He needs to produce an heir, and he has access to all the other concubines in the rear palace. Concubine Aodo, who has not produced any other children, stands to lose a very prominent, very powerful position. And should that happen, all of her ladies in waiting will kind of be cast to the wind. They will end up in other palaces. They might lose their station. They might lose some of their income. They might lose their power and autonomy. So there is definitely motive within the Garnet Palace, especially from the head lady in waiting who oversees all of this, to ensure that her lady stays around a little bit longer and might just have the chance to once again capture the emperor's attention, his affection, and bear another child. She is getting on up there in years, but her baby making time isn't done yet. So in order to ensure that she does keep her place, someone might be willing to get rid of concubine Li Shu in order to ensure that there is an opening position for a new concubine to enter, because rumors have it that the emperor is going to select a new concubine. Well, he's not visiting Lady Li Shu because he's not going to have any sort of relationships with young girls, which is, hey, I'm going to give points to that guy for having that kind of a standard. But this then, of course, causes all different kinds of controversy, because if you're a concubine, you're supposed to act the part of a concubine. You're supposed to perform the duties of a concubine. Plus, on top of that, Lady Li Shu has not kept her palace in order. Her ladies in waiting run amok, influencing her, manipulating her, and bullying her. If Maomao can see this, it's guaranteed that the other concubines can see it as well. And there is a very good chance that their staff is planning to somehow get rid of Lady Li Shu in order then to create that opening for the next concubine, so that way Lady Aodo has an opportunity to stay in place in the rear palace and have one last attempt to make herself relevant by having a night with the Emperor and producing a potential heir. This episode highlights one of the things I've come back to again and again, how women exert their autonomy, their independence, and their power within the story. And we see the vulnerable position of the concubines. They may be powerful individuals because of their relationship with the Emperor and because of the different roles that they fill in, but unless they produce an heir, why are they there? And this is one of the biggest problems for Lady Li Hao. This comes back to the earlier parts of the season, of the series, where we saw her desperate state. And because we know how loyal her staff is, what if this conspiracy to potentially get rid of Lady Li Shu goes even beyond the Garnet Palace? What if there's multiple staffs or multiple concubines scheming to get rid of someone who doesn't seem like they belong in order to ensure that they are able to keep their place and have a longer shot with the Emperor in order to produce an heir? And we get a mix into all of this intrigue. Various elements such as Lady Li Shu being averse to various kinds of food, and it's not just that she's allergic to certain kinds of fish, but she is also very wary of various kinds of foods. Honey being one of them, due to an incident when she was very young, being told you cannot eat honey because this might kill you. So she tries to avoid it, and it looks as though Aodo's head lady in waiting understands this. She's got access to plenty of honey. Could honey be used as a means of intimidating Lady Li Shu? On top of that, we begin to realize that there are people within the rear palace who do indeed have very strong connections to the outside world. They're not that isolated. As such, they're able to bring in goods, people, and information that allow them to have further sway within the rear palace. This means that the power dynamic is way more nuanced and complex than Maomao previously believed, meaning that yes, even ladies in waiting can wield significant power, not just because of their station, but because of their connections to the outside world. This is something that Maomao herself should be able to leverage in upcoming affairs, especially now that she knows that her father was the physician who oversaw the delivery of Lady Aodo's one child. Ooh, layers upon layers of intrigue right here. And yes, I have been in conversations with people in the comments who have said, be prepared for stuff that's coming in the future, because Maomao has way more connections to the rear palace than you might realize, and we're beginning to see that right here. So things are beginning to come together, and you begin to realize that this is truly high stakes. Yes, it is already a high stake when someone's life is on the line. To assassinate a concubine in the rear palace would already be a major deal, but we begin to see how things are truly interconnected, that multiple concubines are really at risk depending on the Emperor's choice and the choices of others within the rear palace. And again, should any of those concubines fall, they will be taking their entire household down with them, and who knows what would happen to those women who've been elevated to very prominent positions within the respective households of each concubine. So there is a lot at stake for all of these gals right here. And again, Maomao is just kind of caught in the middle, being used as a piece that can be moved from one board to the next. And kind of as an interesting side note right here, there are variations of the game of chess where you are playing with teammates, and as you capture pieces from your opponent, you hand those pieces over to your teammates, who then use those pieces on their board to try to win their game, and whoever wins first for their team wins the whole thing. You kind of have this going on right here with how Jinshi and Gaoshan are using Maomao. In order to win the larger game, which is control of the rear palace, they have to keep their eyes on all of the different concubines. In order, if they can win just one struggle or one mystery with those concubines, they stand to reason that they're able then to bring the entire rear palace back under the Emperor's control and order. So their piece that they are constantly shifting about is Maomao. Now that's great for them because that puts them definitely in a position of power and control, but for Maomao, this really does rob her of a lot of her agency, her own control, and it puts her at risk because she's jumping from game to game, from house to house. Yes, she is making connections with powerful women within each concubine's household, but it is sticking her neck out, and if any of them realize you're working for Jinshi, just as she dropped before Lady Li Shu, this paints a target on her back. This puts her neck on the proverbial chopping block for a lot of these powerful women should they believe that she is threatening their schemes for power. So the stakes are being raised right here, and I really like how all of this is playing out. Again, this is very good mystery storytelling. This is upping the stakes in a very good, ingenious way by bringing all the relevant information back together, all of the relevant characters back together, and yet still introducing more to help us realize this is how everything comes together to make sense. And not just make sense, but to show that, oh, mysteries are even bigger than what they appear. This is just, this is great progression. This is where the slow burn really pays off. Not in a burst and a flurry of motion where you're like, oh, it was worth it all. But instead, still upping the stakes, upping the ante, bringing everything together, showing you why all of those other adventures were relevant and important to set up where Maomao really is within the Rear Palace, her connections to the palace, the real mysteries of family connections, family affairs, her own family affair, Jinshi's potential family affair, what has been happening with the Emperor's family, and all of that intrigue right there, and the fact that you have effectively a baby war between all of these different women who stand to lose everything if they cannot produce an heir and keep the Emperor's love. Whew! Big things are afoot. Now, one thing I want to address, because this is something that I know is going to kind of rile up people a little bit, and it is a bit disappointing from this one character, but I don't think it's actually bad writing, not at all, is when Jinshi really forcibly teases Maomao later on in this episode. The reason why I bring this up is because, well, a lot of people are going to be like, that's abuse, and therefore he's a horrible character. Well, here's the thing. Jinshi is an interesting individual whom we don't fully understand just yet. We understand that he is the Emperor's agent within the Rear Palace. He is tasked with keeping order within this area. Therefore, it is up to him to use these women as he deems appropriate in order to ensure the Emperor's order within the Rear Palace. But that order has been slipping from his grasp, and almost at the center of it has been this apothecary, Maomao, a girl who really intrigues him because of who she is, her spunk, her wit, her intelligence, and the way that she's able to challenge everyone with just her sheer force of personality and the way that she sees the world. This is a very intriguing girl for him, and someone who is not charmed by his beauty and wiles, which makes him want her even more. Well, on top of all that, even though she is this incredible power piece that he can use, and she stands at the center of so many mysteries, he is essentially infatuated with her. And during this period of infatuation, she has gotten the better of him multiple times, with pranks, with jokes, making him look like a fool, and allowing the other concubines to now finally exert some sort of dominance over the Emperor's agent by making him look ridiculous by using Maomao against him. So, at this strange point, at kind of like a boiling over moment, Jinshi acts foolish. He acts stupid. He sees an opportunity to tease Maomao back, and he pushes it too far. He is going too far. It's not okay. I do like how he scampers away, though, when Maomao's mistress shows up and is like, what are you doing with my girl? Because she, as one of the Emperor's concubines, does wield authority within her own household. She's able to defend one of the people that she has claimed as her own, though there are plenty of people who have offered alliances and ownership over Maomao. Maomao has made her personal alliance very clear, which puts Jinshi on the back foot. So, very interesting moment right here, because this shows a moment of weakness for Jinshi. It shows that he is not as mature as he would like others to think, and Maomao does resist him, does rebuff him. This means that the relationship going forward is one that can tend to swing now a little bit more antagonistically. Is that the way it's going to play out? Not according to the shippers, but we will see where things go from here. This is actually, again, a moment that I think is an example of good writing. The reason why I say that is because we get to see extra layers to these characters, and this is a natural consequence of the imbalance of power within the rear palace. And even a guy who some people might like, such as Jinshi, can succumb to a moment of weakness and can do something foolish and stupid, which is good writing for a character. Let your characters make mistakes. Let your characters be morons. Let your characters do something that they shouldn't from time to time, to show weakness, to show a lapse in judgment, and allow them then to suffer those consequences of their choices. And then we learn the most about a person based on how they deal with those consequences. A heroic individual or a good individual is someone who will realize I did wrong and try to do better. A more villainous person is someone who will reject that they did anything wrong and continue down this path. And a more nuanced individual is someone who might realize that they did something wrong or try to forget that they did something wrong and are a little bit slower to change as a person. I feel that Jinshi is going to fall in that middle ground where we're going to see more nuance, where he's going to realize I did something I shouldn't have, but he's not necessarily going to improve really quickly. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad character or that he's written well. That just means that there's nuance to him and that we are encouraged to continue watching this story unfold to see where his character ends up. And again, that is good writing. You don't need to know everything about a character from the get-go, and you don't need to know where they're going to end up from the get-go either. In fact, that makes it boring. It's way more interesting and intriguing to see a character figure out their future as the plot unfolds, and they get to make their own choices, both good and bad. And we can be angry when they make a bad choice, and that's totally fine. However, if we as the fans, as the viewers, as the readers, just kind of begin losing and getting angry, saying, no, this is not okay, I don't like this story sucks because it didn't play out the way that I wanted it to, because there's no way that this character would have done that. We need to tone it back a little bit and let the writers cook. Let them see, let them show us, let us see where this goes, and then judge the quality and the character based on where they end up. From where I am sitting as a writer, I see this as a very interesting twist, as a very good direction for the story and for Jinshi as a character to go, because of how it's going to draw out the drama, the intrigue, the nuance of these characters, and how it will challenge Maomao as well as challenge him within future episodes, especially now that the stakes are really being established right here, and that there is the potential to expose some sort of weird family affair. What if Jinshi is indeed related to Aodo? Whoa, what would that actually mean in terms of the power dynamic? Would Jinshi actually then probably step in to save Aodo and her household from anything that they're doing? Could this rob people of justice? Could it be that he is looking to subvert one of his own family members? Is he trying to put her in her place? Is there some other alliance that we don't fully understand? Is there a plot that goes all the way to the Emperor himself? We don't yet know. This is all being teased on out. And these mysteries are interesting and engaging in and of themselves, but we would quickly lose interest in them if it wasn't for the engaging characters and how we buy into them. Maomao being the chief example, but Jinshi himself, because with this moment of weakness that he displays right here, some people might be thinking, well, if he is related to Aodo and Aodo and her household are responsible for the attempted assassination of Lady Li Shu, then let him take the fall for this as well, and he can go down with this ship. Boo! Boo to you, Jinshi! And then to later on have it potentially revealed that that's not the case, that he actually is a much better person, that he's someone who's willing to change, and that he isn't attached to the schemes and the conspiracy to assassinate one of the concubines. That then would make the audience be like, whoa, what's going on right here? Did I get something wrong? And that is one of the ways in which writers get people to engage with their stories and become even more emotionally invested. So that's again why I say this is actually really good writing. Alright, so I know that I've pontificated and rambled on long enough here for this particular review and analysis, but I hope that for those of you watching this, that you can now see a little bit better why this is so intriguing, why this is so engaging, and there's so many more elements to this particular episode. Seriously, we could be here for hours just talking about the events within this episode, what they reveal, all of the visual clues and cues, all of these different characters coming together, reviewing their history, and more. This is an episode which would be amazing to have a roundtable discussion for, because again, there's just so much happening. But as just one reviewer right here, I can't do that in this video, but we can have those discussions in the comments. Let's get that going. In the meantime, as we're waiting for the next episode, if you're looking for more writing advice, insights, reviews, and analyses, please check out our other videos here on our channel. Or if you're looking for a great story that you just want to sink your teeth into, just like with the Apothecary Diaries, then why not check out one of the books that we have published? Links for them are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.